The rain hammered down on the streets of Washington, D.C., shrouding the city in a curtain of gray. The Capitol's towering dome loomed in the distance, a symbol of power and control, but beneath its polished exterior, shadows lurked. They always did. In the penthouse of a sleek, glass-walled high-rise, Agent Evelyn Chase stood motionless, her silhouette framed against the stormy skyline. Her reflection stared back at her from the window, a composed, elegant woman in her late 40s with sharp features and piercing blue eyes that had seen more than they let on. Power radiated from her, not in the loud, boastful way of politicians, but in the quiet, dangerous undertone of someone who truly ran the game. Evelyn was no ordinary government official. Officially, she was the deputy director of the National Security Division, a position that came with just enough prestige to keep her in the public eye, but not enough to garner too much scrutiny. Unofficially, she was the architect of the Umbra Project, a clandestine operation so secret that even the president only knew half of it. The phone on her desk buzzed, breaking her reverie. Evelyn didn't flinch. She turned, her movements deliberate, and picked up the sleek black receiver. "Chase," she said, her voice calm and clipped. "There's been a breach." The voice on the other end was tight with urgency. It belonged to her trusted aide, Daniel Reeve, a man who had worked under her for nearly a decade. Level 4 clearance files. Someone's accessed Umbra. Evelyn's grip on the receiver tightened, but her expression didn't waver. "Where?" "Langley. Remote access. It's been contained, but—" Daniel hesitated. "The signature matches someone inside the agency." Evelyn's heart, unshaken by years of secret operations and high-stakes decisions, skipped for just a moment. She leaned back into her chair, her fingers tapping the polished wood of her desk. "Patch me through to the Cybersecurity Division. I want a full trace. And I want it now." "Yes, ma'am." She hung up and stared at the ceiling, her mind calculating 100 possibilities at once. Umbra was her legacy, and her curse. The project had been designed to monitor global threats and eliminate them before they became public knowledge. It was a program that didn't officially exist, operating in the shadows where legalities and ethics blurred. But Umbra had a cost. There were bodies buried, some figuratively, others literally, and Evelyn had made sure every trace had been erased. Or so she thought. Her thoughts were interrupted by the soft chime of the fingerprint-locked door to her office. Daniel entered, his face pale. A folder was clutched tightly in his hands. "They're asking questions," he said quietly, closing the door behind him. Internal Affairs flagged the breach. "They're going to want a statement." Evelyn rose from her chair, her movements smooth and controlled. "No one outside this room knows the full scope of Umbra. We'll handle it. Who accessed the files, Daniel?" He hesitated, then handed her the folder. Evelyn flipped it open, her eyes scanning the contents. Her breath caught. The name on the file wasn't just familiar. It was damning. Subject, Agent Natalie Rowe. Status, deceased, date of death, March 12th, 2017. Evelyn's hands froze. "This is impossible," she murmured. Daniel's voice was barely above a whisper. "Ma'am, she's alive." Evelyn stared at the file, the weight of its contents pressing down on her like a leaden fog. Agent Natalie Rowe was dead. Evelyn had seen to it herself, or so she thought. Natalie had been one of her most talented operatives, handpicked to be part of the Umbra Project. She was brilliant, ruthless, and loyal, right up until the moment she wasn't. 4 years ago, Natalie had unearthed something within Umbra that she wasn't supposed to see, something Evelyn had gone to great lengths to bury. The official report listed Natalie's death as a casualty of an international mission gone wrong, but Evelyn knew better. She had overseen the operation that ensured Natalie wouldn't return, yet here she was, alive and accessing files that could dismantle everything Evelyn had built. "We need to find her," Evelyn said, her voice like steel. Daniel nodded. "I've already put a team on it. If she's alive, she's gone dark. No financial trails, no digital footprints. It's like she disappeared off the grid 4 years ago." Evelyn closed the folder and set it down. No one disappears entirely, not even Natalie. She always had contingency plans. She's not hiding. She wants us to know she's out there. Daniel shifted uncomfortably. Do you think she's coming for Umbra? Or you? Evelyn's jaw tightened. Both. That night, Evelyn sat in her private surveillance room, a hidden chamber within her penthouse. Screens lined the walls, each displaying live feeds from various government databases, private servers, and Umbra's classified network. She scrolled through the data Daniel had flagged, searching for patterns, anomalies, anything that could lead her to Natalie. Hours passed, the storm outside raging like a reflection of her turmoil. Finally, something caught her eye. A series of encrypted messages, sent from an anonymous server, had been intercepted by Umbra's automated systems. Most of the messages were gibberish, designed to throw off trackers, but one phrase stood out, repeated in multiple transmissions. Evelyn's breath hitched. It was a code phrase, one she hadn't heard in years. It had been part of a contingency protocol Natalie had devised during her time on Umbra. The phoenix represented resurrection, a return from the ashes. "She's taunting me," Evelyn muttered under her breath. She tapped into the coordinates embedded within the messages. They pointed to a remote safe house in the outskirts of Virginia, one of many facilities Umbra had decommissioned years ago. Evelyn didn't trust anyone else to handle this. She grabbed her coat and her firearm, slipping into the night without alerting Daniel or her team. If Natalie wanted to play games, Evelyn would meet her on the field. The safe house was eerily quiet when Evelyn arrived. The overgrown grass and boarded-up windows gave it the appearance of abandonment. But Evelyn knew better. She approached cautiously, her weapon drawn, her senses heightened. Inside, the air was stale, and the faint hum of electricity buzzed from somewhere deep within. A single bulb flickered overhead, casting long, dancing shadows across the walls. On the far side of the room, a laptop sat open on a rickety table, its screen glowing faintly. Evelyn approached it, her finger hovering over the touchpad. The moment she touched it, the screen flickered to life, revealing a video feed. Natalie's face appeared on the screen, older but unmistakable. Her dark hair was pulled back, and her eyes, once filled with admiration and trust, now bore a cold, calculating glint. "Hello, Evelyn," Natalie said, her voice smooth and confident. "It's been a while." Evelyn clenched her jaw. "Cut the theatrics, Natalie. You've gone to a lot of trouble to get my attention. What do you want?" Natalie tilted her head, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Justice. For me. For the people you left in the dark. For the ones you buried." Evelyn's grip on the laptop tightened. "You knew what you signed up for when you joined Umbra. You were part of the machine, Natalie. Don't act like you're above it now." Natalie's smile faded, replaced by something colder. "What I didn't sign up for was becoming expendable. I trusted you, and you put a bullet in my back. Did you really think I wouldn't come back for you?" The screen went black before Evelyn could respond. The faint sound of a timer ticking drew her attention to the laptop. Her eyes widened as she spotted a small explosive device taped to the underside of the table. She bolted from the building, diving into the grass just as the safe house erupted in flames. The shockwave threw her forward, her ears ringing as debris rained down around her. "RTR." Back at her penthouse, bruised and shaken, Evelyn paced her office. Natalie's message was clear. She wasn't just coming for Umbra. She was coming for Evelyn personally. Daniel burst into the room, his face pale. "Ma'am, we have a problem." Evelyn turned to him, her patience thinning. "What now?" "There's a leak." He handed her a tablet, the screen displaying a news headline. "Whistleblower alleges secret government program. The Umbra Project exposed." Evelyn's blood ran cold. The article didn't reveal everything, but it was enough to cause a media frenzy. Questions would be asked, investigations launched. Umbra couldn't survive this kind of scrutiny. "This is her doing," Evelyn said, her voice low. "She's dismantling me piece by piece." Daniel hesitated. "There's more. Someone sent a package to your home address. It's heavily encrypted, but the label says it's from Natalie Rowe." Evelyn's hand trembled as she opened the package. Inside was a single USB drive. She inserted it into her computer, and a single file appeared on the screen. A video. The footage was grainy, but clear enough. It showed Evelyn, years younger, standing in a dimly lit room. In front of her was Natalie, bound to a chair, bloodied but defiant. The audio crackled as Evelyn's voice echoed through the speakers. "You should have stayed in line, Natalie. Now I have to clean up your mess." The screen went black, and a single line of text appeared. "The whole world will see this unless you meet me." The air in the abandoned warehouse was damp and heavy, the faint smell of rust and mildew clinging to the walls. Evelyn stepped inside, her gun drawn, every muscle in her body tense. She was dressed in black, her movements silent as she scanned the dimly lit space. High above, the moonlight filtered through shattered skylights, illuminating patches of the concrete floor. She heard the faint sound of footsteps echoing in the distance. Natalie was here. Evelyn's voice cut through the darkness. "You didn't have to make it this complicated, Natalie. If you wanted me dead, you could have taken the shot by now." A slow, deliberate clap echoed through the room. Natalie emerged from the shadows, her figure bathed in pale light. She wore a leather jacket, her posture relaxed, but her eyes burned with intensity. "Where's the fun in that?" Natalie said, her tone dripping with mockery. "Besides, killing you isn't the point. Not yet, anyway." Evelyn kept her gun trained on Natalie. "Then what is the point? You've already exposed Umbra. You've destroyed everything I've worked for. What more do you want?" Natalie tilted her head, a smirk curling her lips. "What I want is the truth, Evelyn. Not the one you tell the world. The real truth. About me. About Umbra. About why you tried to erase me." Evelyn's grip on the gun tightened. "You knew too much. You were going to compromise the mission. I did what I had to do to protect the program." Natalie laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Protect the program? Is that what you tell yourself at night? That you were the noble savior of national security? You didn't try to kill me because I was a threat to Umbra. You tried to kill me because I was a threat to you." Evelyn's expression faltered for the briefest moment. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I do," Natalie said, stepping closer. "You see, I've pieced it all together. The classified missions, the black budget accounts, the bodies you buried along the way. Umbra was never about protecting the country. It was about power. Your power. And when I found out, you decided I was expendable." Evelyn hesitated. For a moment, the weight of everything she had done, every lie, every betrayal, pressed down on her like a crushing tide, but she quickly shoved it aside. "You're delusional," she said coldly. "You were a liability, and liabilities get eliminated." Natalie's eyes flashed with fury. "You can keep telling yourself that, but we both know the truth. You didn't just try to kill me, Evelyn. You tried to erase me. You wiped my identity, fabricated my death, and buried every trace of who I was. You wanted me gone, forgotten, but I'm still here." Evelyn's voice hardened. Not for long. She raised the gun, her finger hovering over the trigger. But before she could fire, Natalie held up her hand, revealing a small device with a blinking red light. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," Natalie said. "This is a dead man's switch. The moment my heart stops, every piece of evidence I've collected, every dirty secret about Umbra and you, goes public. The world will know everything." Evelyn froze, her mind racing. She had underestimated Natalie. She always had. "What do you want from me?" Evelyn asked, lowering the gun slightly. Natalie smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I want you to confess, to the world. Admit what Umbra really is, what you've done, and then dismantle it. If you do that, I'll disappear for good. No one will ever hear from me again." Evelyn stared at her, the weight of the demand sinking in. Confessing would destroy her career, her reputation, and everything she had built. But refusing would mean risking exposure anyway, and possibly the lives of countless agents tied to Umbra. "You're asking me to destroy myself," Evelyn said quietly. Natalie stepped closer, her expression softening for the first time. "You destroyed me first." The two women stood in silence, the tension between them crackling like electricity. For a moment, Evelyn considered pulling the trigger anyway, consequences be damned. But deep down, she knew Natalie had outmaneuvered her. Evelyn lowered the gun completely, her shoulders slumping. "You've won, Natalie," she said. "I'll do it. I'll expose Umbra. But when this is over, I want you gone. Forever." Natalie nodded. "Deal." But as Evelyn turned to leave, A voice crackled through her earpiece. "Ma'am, we've got her in our sights, awaiting your orders." Evelyn froze, her blood running cold. Daniel had followed her, and he wasn't alone. Natalie noticed the change in Evelyn's expression and immediately realized what was happening. "You called backup," she said, her voice laced with betrayal. "No," Evelyn said quickly. "I didn't." A single gunshot rang out, and Natalie crumpled to the floor, clutching her side. Evelyn spun around, her heart racing as Daniel and a team of armed agents stormed into the warehouse. "What the hell are you doing?" Evelyn shouted. "She's a threat, ma'am," Daniel said, his gun still trained on Natalie. "We couldn't let her walk away." Evelyn dropped to her knees beside Natalie, who was gasping for breath, blood pooling beneath her. Natalie's hand gripped Evelyn's wrist, her eyes burning with pain and defiance. "You think this ends with me?" Natalie whispered, her voice barely audible. "Umbra will fall, with or without me." Evelyn's chest tightened as she watched the life drain from Natalie's eyes. She turned to Daniel, her expression a mix of fury and despair. "You had no right," she said, her voice trembling. "I was protecting you," Daniel replied. "She was going to destroy everything." Evelyn stood, her mind racing. Natalie was dead, but the dead man's switch was still a threat. If Natalie had been telling the truth, the moment she died, the files would be released. "Find the device," Evelyn ordered. "Shut it down before it's too late." But even as the agents scrambled to follow her orders, Evelyn knew it was already too late. Somewhere, across the vast expanse of the digital world, the truth was already unraveling. The morning news hit the airwaves like a thunderclap. Evelyn sat in her penthouse, her face pale as she watched the screen. The headlines scrolled in bold, unrelenting letters across every major channel. Classified government program exposed. The Umbra files released in full. Whistleblower reveals dark secrets of national security project. Mass surveillance, targeted eliminations, and black budget crimes. The anchor's voice was somber. In an unprecedented leak, thousands of classified documents tied to a secret program known as the Umbra Project have been made public. The files implicate high-ranking officials in a range of illegal activities, including unauthorized surveillance, extrajudicial killings, and covert operations that bypassed all oversight. Among those named is Deputy Director Evelyn Chase, who is described in the documents as the architect of the program. Evelyn turned off the television, her hand trembling. It had been less than 12 hours since Natalie's death in the warehouse, but the fallout had already begun. She had acted quickly after Natalie's final moments, ordering Daniel and the team to track the dead man's switch. But no matter how many servers they breached, how many encrypted trails they followed, the files had already disseminated to countless public sources. Natalie's vengeance had been perfect, precise, unstoppable, and devastating. Evelyn leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling. She had spent decades building her career, crafting an image of power and control, only to see it all crumble in a single night. But even as the world turned against her, she couldn't shake the nagging feeling that Natalie had planned this all too well. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sharp chime of her secure line. Evelyn hesitated, then picked up the phone. "It's done," Daniel said on the other end. "The files are everywhere. There's no stopping it." "I know," Evelyn replied, her voice hollow. "There's more," Daniel continued. "The files, they don't just implicate you. They implicate all of us. Everyone tied to Umbra. Agents, assets, contractors. It's a complete takedown." Evelyn closed her eyes. She had suspected as much. Natalie hadn't just wanted revenge on her. She had wanted to destroy the entire system that had wronged her. "What about internal affairs?" Evelyn asked. "They've issued a warrant for your arrest," Daniel said quietly. "It's only a matter of time before they come for you." Evelyn hung up without responding. She walked to the window, staring out at the city below. The storm had passed, leaving the skyline bathed in soft morning light. But Evelyn felt no relief, no peace. Her phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't the secure line. It was a private, untraceable number she hadn't used in years. She hesitated before answering. A voice crackled through the line, low and familiar. "Hello, Evelyn." Evelyn's heart stopped. It couldn't be. Natalie? she whispered. The voice chuckled. Surprised? You shouldn't be. You didn't really think I'd leave something as important as my own death in someone else's hands, did you? Evelyn's grip on the phone tightened. But I saw you. You saw what I wanted you to see, Natalie interrupted. A little blood, a weak pulse, and a lot of theatrics. Your team was too busy chasing the files to notice I'd slipped away. Did you really think I'd let you win that easily? Evelyn's mind raced. Natalie was alive, and she had played her, from start to finish. What do you want now? Evelyn demanded, her voice shaking with equal parts anger and fear. I already got what I wanted, Natalie said calmly. Umbra is gone. Your reputation is in ruins. The truth is out there for everyone to see. But you're still standing. For now. Evelyn's chest tightened. If you wanted me dead, you would have done it by now. True, Natalie admitted. Killing you would be too easy. I want you to live with this, Evelyn. I want you to watch as everything you built crumbles around you. I want you to feel the weight of every life you destroyed, every decision you justified in the name of power. Evelyn sank into her chair, the phone still pressed to her ear. For the first time in years, she felt powerless. You'll never win, Natalie, Evelyn said, though her voice lacked conviction. You think this will change anything? Umbra will be replaced. The system will adapt. People like me will always rise to the top. Natalie's voice was quiet but firm. Maybe, but not you. Your time is over, Evelyn. And when the dust settles, I'll still be out there, watching, waiting. You'll never see me coming. The line went dead. 2 weeks later, Evelyn sat in a cold, windowless interrogation room. Her once flawless appearance was marred by exhaustion. Dark circles under her eyes, her hair disheveled. Across the table sat 2 internal affairs agents, their expressions grim. You understand the charges against you, one of them said. Treason, abuse of power, conspiracy to commit murder. The list goes on. Evelyn didn't respond. She stared at the table, her mind elsewhere. The agent leaned forward. If you cooperate, provide us with the full scope of the Umbra Project's operations. We might be able to negotiate a deal. Evelyn's lips curled into a faint, bitter smile. You think I'm the worst of it? You have no idea what's out there. The agents exchanged a glance but said nothing. After the interrogation, Evelyn was escorted back to her holding cell. As the heavy metal door clanged shut behind her, she sat on the edge of the cot, her hands trembling. She had spent her entire life controlling the narrative, but now she was the one being written out of the story. She lay back, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying Natalie's words over and over. You'll never see me coming. Late that night, as the prison fell silent, a faint hissing sound filled Evelyn's cell. She bolted upright, her eyes darting around the room. A thin, pale mist was seeping through the ventilation system. Evelyn's heart pounded. She stumbled toward the door, banging on it with her fists. Guard! Help! But no one came. Her vision blurred, her legs giving out beneath her. As she collapsed to the floor, gasping for air, a single thought crossed her mind. Natalie,